we're Just Got Played, and we are gaming through mechanisms. So if you're wondering what mechanisms are, we're talking about board and card games. And all these games have different ways that you interact with the game, and we call those things mechanisms. And we come up with names and descriptions of what those are, so we can sort of describe and talk about games, that are similar. So it's just a little vocabulary we use. Specifically today, we're talking about a mechanism that we're calling dice chucking. So dice chucking, in general, you roll a whole bunch of dice and are trying to resolve something. This is different from dice placement. For at least our purposes here, dice placement is another video that we're going to do. That's one where you roll dice and then you sort of look at what you've got and place them, according to what you needed or what you're trying to do. So anyway, roll a bunch of dice and try to resolve something. And we're each going to go around and tell you our favorites, and then go around again, tell you another one of our favorites. And at the end, we'll tell you our people's choice, because we polled our fan base on a Facebook poll. So, all right, let's get started. And let's start off with Erock.
Hello, welcome to the show once again. So Dice Chuckers has a very fond place in my heart. I feel like when I was a kid growing up, this was mostly what we played in one form or another, was a dice chucker. But I also feel like the hobby evolved very well and brought this whole mechanism along with it. And I think that my first choice is a very good representation of that becoming something in a modern type of game. And my choice for this is Champions of Midgard. I love Champions of Midgard. It's one of my top games. I do talk about it kind of frequently because I love it. It's great. Now, to be fair, there's a whole half of this game that's a worker placement game that's going to get you things like food and the dice and things like that. And it also lets you set up the battles that you're going to have with your dice that are your warriors. And then the second half of the game kicks in, and that's when the fun begins, because everybody has their little battles. They fight the draugrs, they fight the sea serpents, you fight all kinds of things, and you set yourself up for these battles. And you roll these dice, and you keep going until basically either you or your enemy is destroyed. Now, it's not a versus game in the sense that I'm not fighting against Lloyd, I'm fighting against the NPCs on the board. But still, I'm chucking dice and fighting them every round until one of us is destroyed. What makes this game kind of unique is that, like I said, your warriors are your dice. So different things in here have vulnerabilities and things that they have good defenses against. So you might fight something that does not take damage against spearmen. Well, then don't take your spearman dice to that fight, because they're not going to do anything. And some of the dice might have defense on them, which is going to really help if something's going to keep trying to whittle down your life. That's kind of just a brief overview of everything. It's a very much a Viking game. I absolutely love it. It's been out quite a while at this point, but every time I play, we have fun. There's always, once a round, there's a whole, yes moment for someone around the table. And this is one of those games where it doesn't have to be you. It's just as, well, not just as fun, but it is also fun watching other people roll, because you can lose. It's entirely possible that you take your force of dice up and just roll terribly, and that thing destroyed you, and now you lost all your warriors. And That's the way that goes. But I absolutely love Champions of Midgard. It's still one of my top games, and I know you guys have played it as well. So,
and that's why you play with the Valhalla expansion, because when you lose all your warriors, it's still okay.
Yes.
I really like Champions of Midgard. Tiffany, are you a fan of Champions of Midgard?
Yeah, I really enjoy that game too. We've played it a few times, and I tend to take the sorry, my dog is he sees something out the back window.
It sounded like your tummy, so
yeah. I tend to, is it the low-key strat, I think? I always try to kill myself. Yeah. But I enjoyed that game, honestly.
Yeah, it works really well in this game because, yes, if you're playing with Valhalla, all the warriors that die you churn them into something else anyway. So it's a real cyclical nature of that with that expansion. And I agree with Steven. I absolutely highly recommend never playing without Valhalla or whatever the other one was called, Mountain something.
Yeah, I don't know. I have that other one because it just gave an extra player.
Right.
But I don't remember the mechanisms other than that.
Yeah. absolutely. But throw them both in there, play that whole thing. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Now, I didn't ask Lloyd his opinion of Champions of Midgard. You saw his reaction. We all know he likes it, but I'm curious if this is one of his picks. So, Lloyd, is it one of your picks?
No. I knew Erock was going to pick it. So I did pick it, though. It is my pick. It's the one I like to dub as Euro trash, because it's got that worker placement Euro mechanism along with that Ameritrash of just throwing dice at something, and that it's got the highs and lows of a dice chucker Ameritrash. You throw 10 dice down and you kill something and you're just or you get destroyed and you go back to your little village with your tail between your legs and start all over again and try to get revenge. I've never played with the expansions. And I don't own it because it wouldn't get played here. So I only play it with my group, but I think they have the expansions. I just think we haven't played it. I haven't been there enough to play it when they've played it with the expansions, but I definitely want to play it with the expansions because I really like it. So yeah, that's also my pick for the dice chucking mechanism.
Nice.
All right. Well, Tiffany, what's your first pick for dice chuckers?
So for my first pick, I had to go with my second favorite game of all time. So I was a pretty easy choice for me. You only get to roll 2 dice, but it's still, I think, a dice chucker because when you roll those dice, everybody gets to resolve it, which I think is extra fun. Everybody gets to do something every time. And that narrows it down tremendously. There are only a handful of games that were played like that. But my choice of those types of games was Space Base. So that is my second favorite game of all time. You are trying to upgrade your ships or your fleet of ships, and you have powers that you activate on your turn versus powers that you activate on everybody else's turn. And you just roll the dice and see what happens. And then when you play, when you wait for other people to take their turn, you see what happens. So you just. I enjoy it tremendously, and it's my favorite dice chucker. I love dice chuckers, so it's there are a lot to choose from, but that's probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, I mean, in that game, you're not rolling a lot of dice at any given time, but you make up for that in volume because everybody rolls dice every turn, and there's a lot of turns, so there was a lot of dice rolling in this game. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like Benny wants to say something. Does he have an opinion?
Yeah, Benny has something to say about that. I'm not trying to pet him to keep him quiet.
I was just thinking of the Jetsons dog because you were talking Space Base and there's a dog growling.
Astro.
Astro, right, yeah. All right, so I thought of a few different types of games when I was trying to think of dice checkers, but this is the game when I just think of having a massive amount of dice that I'm rolling all at one time. This is the game that I thought of, and it's not one of my favorite games anymore, but probably when I was a kid, it may have been my favorite game of all time, and that is Axis and Allies. So Axis and Allies, if you've ever played Axis and Allies and you're, say, the Japanese player, on your very first turn, you just try to eliminate the American fleet, the American Pacific Fleet. You send everything you've got. Right? All your ships, submarines, everything. And you have just got 2 overflowing handfuls of dice that you're rolling because you've got so many submarines and freighters and fighters and battleships and so many things that are attacking at once that you just have a massive, handful of dice. And it's the same thing when you're like the Russians trying to invade Eastern Germany too, right? Like just massive handfuls of dice. We roll it in the box lid and you're rolling multiple times. And yeah, it's just, that really just captures dice chucking for me. Incidentally, one time I tried to play as the Japanese character and not destroy the American Pacific Fleet, and that did not go so well.
No.
They just retreated to California and built an even more massive fleet, and I was out of the game too fast. Anyway, don't do that. Learn from history, kids. Anyway, so when I was thinking just what is a game that I like that is a massive amount of dice rolling, and that is Axis and Allies.
Awesome. Great choice.
All right, cool. All right, let's go around again. Let's go with Tiffany. Tiffany, what's another dice chucker?
I was hoping that you wouldn't pick me because I'm not really sure yet. I haven't really decided on my second game.
Lloyd was saying the same thing earlier.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, yeah. So I guess this might be a dice placement though. So I might have to default anyways. Dinosaur Island.
You do roll.
Does it pass, judges?
Dice.
I need JJ here.
You roll dice and then you draft the dice, and so I mean you can pick it. It's you can pick anything you want, right?
Yeah.
Anything with dice.
It's not dice placement because
as long as it's not dice placement,
use them and get DNA from them or whatever. So
right. Okay, cool. Well, then I'm going with it because I'm sitting here, and the other game that I really want to pick, I just for the life of me cannot remember. I just can't remember the name of it. So I'm going to go with Dinosaur Island. It's also one of my favorites. It's you roll the dice and you have to then go around the table and people draft which DNA they need to create the dinosaurs that they need for their amusement park. It's just we were in our friendly local game store just the other day, and we were looking at a new game that came out, and it was about building theme parks. And Eric looked at me, he was like, you'd rather just be building Dinosaur Island theme parks. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I don't want to build any park that's not got Dinosaurs on it with my little rascals that are getting eaten by the dinosaurs. So that's my pick.
All right. Well, I'll come back to you for a third pick if you think of whatever else you were trying to.
Yeah, everybody else does it, so why not?
Yeah, right. True. I mean, Erock throws in like 6 extra games every time he talks. So, yeah, right?
There's good games out there. Yeah.
So speaking of Erock, what is your second of the 17 games you're about to talk about?
Okay, so that's a pretty good prelude because, all right, like when we started this, I said, I feel like I've been playing this since I was a kid. And this was primarily what we played when I was a kid. And the two games that immediately came to mind when this topic was brought up was Axis and Allies and Risk. So for the purposes of this list, I decided to choose one of them, and I had chosen Risk. So I'm extremely happy that you chose Axis and Allies because really, those are the two games. Like I grew up playing Risk and Axis and Allies, and those are the feeling of a dice chucker. It's hard to explain that logically, but you just have this feeling in a dice chucker. You're like, come on, I gotta get it. Come on. And I feel like half of Champions of Midgard is that, which is why I brought that up to bring that into a modern perspective. But at the same time, Risk and Axis and Allies. My choice, as I said, is Risk. For anybody who's never played it, Risk is a game of world domination. You basically randomly start on a map of the world and then decide where you want to attack. And that's about it. If you have at least 4 things to attack with, you can roll 3 dice. Defender never rolls more than 2, and Defender wins ties. And that's basically it. Your best die against my best die, your second best die against my second best die. And that's how Risk plays out. The only thing that changes that at all is sometimes when you take a territory, you get a card. And sometimes you can turn those in for huge sets of armies that kind of balloons as the game goes on. So like the first one will be like 5 armies. And the second one will be like 7 armies. And then an hour and a half later, it's like, I'm turning this set in for 48 armies. And then you just like steamroll across the map. And if you don't make it the whole way, you go, uh-oh, because the next guy is going to turn in 55 armies. And then he starts in his one little spot that you just couldn't take. And he steamrolls you all the way back across. And
you just couldn't get them out of Australia.
Finish them off, yes. And this is basically how Risk goes for potentially weeks at a time. So I've played a ton of Risk in my day. I've played a ton of Axis and Allies. I haven't played either of them in a very long time, but I don't care. They both have a very special place in my heart from growing up and really just having fun. So mine is Risk. Thank you.
Yeah, I think these games that we're I don't know, popular in the 80s or whatever, they suffer a little bit from overstaying their welcome. They're a little too long for what they are. So they just don't hit the table as much as I would like. I mean, I played a game of Fortress America like Axis and Allies a few years ago, and we played it over like 3 days.
Yeah,
we just
exactly.
This just takes forever.
The extra versions of Risk, like 2210 or Metal Gear Solid or any of those extra ones, they add that. They get rid of the world domination mode, and they have the time frame where it's like you have 7 turns or whatever to do as much as you can, and that kind of limits that thing. It gives you a definite end game. So I do like Risk. I had Metal Gear Solid Risk, which is really cool because it follows like Metal Gear Solid 3, I think, or 4. I don't know, one of the Metal Gear Solids. But the coolest thing is that it's got a little submarine. It's got a Metal Gear, and you can take over that submarine. It's got non-player characters on it, but if you take it over, Australia is no longer safe because every place has a backdoor in. So you can take the sub and go. You have to roll a die. It's random where you go, but
It's
there's
random.
cards that are
You're like, we're going to take off in the sub. We're not sure where we're going to end up, but we're going.
I think it's random. There might be cards that allow you to go where you want.
Even if it's not, we're playing at random now.
Yeah,
like, that's house rule.
Yeah. So that's those other versions give you ways to kind of shorten that time span down because you can play that game for hours. We used to play it at work at lunch, and we would basically play a turn, 1 turn each because it took that long. Once you started getting in, the mid game, it's like, oh, it's going to take me 15 minutes to take my turn. So we would take a picture of the board, move it off to the side so no one would disturb it, and then come back the next day and play again. And we'd strategize all through the rest of the day.
Nice.
Nice.
All right, Lloyd. Well, what is your second pick?
So, I'm in the same boat. We talked about this. I have a bunch of candidates, and I'm not quite sure, but I think I'm going to go. I think Richard Lanius needs to pop up on this list somewhere because pretty much everything he does, or at least everything I've played, is all about rolling dice and looking for those 5s and 6s to win. So it came down really to between Arkham Horror and Defenders of the Last Stand. Defenders of the Last Stand has way more dice. But I think I'm going to go with Arkham Horror because I kind of like the way Defenders has it's just a ludicrous amount of dice that you're doing. Arkham, you're going to get up to X amount of dice, and part of how many dice you get is at least 2nd edition. 3rd edition, I don't think has the same mechanism. I don't remember, but you move your in between each round. You can adjust your different traits, so like your lore and magic and your fight and speed and stuff, you can change those up and down, and typically going one way increases one but decreases the other. So then you kind of set yourself up. So if you go into a fight, you're like, I'm going to go fight that. I'm not going to try and say any of their names because I don't know how to pronounce anything that Lovecraft makes. But you go to fight one of those 18 billion-eyed dogs with tentacles, and you're like, well, it's got a modifier of -1. So, and I need to hit it, I need like 4 hits on it. So I need to roll in there with 6 dice. I need to work up my mites and, get my shotgun so I can get all these extra dice. And you roll the dice, and most times you lose. It's very hard to win in that game because you're looking for 5s and 6s. And if you get blessed, then I think the 4 does it. But if you get cursed, then you lose the 5, so then you can only get it on 6s. So the game is really brutal, but it is all about the dice rolling. Pretty much every check you do in that game is some form of dice rolling to pass and try to prevent the bad things from happening to you, because that's what that game is, just bad thing after bad thing. And you have some control over it, but those dice, they're going to make or break you. And so I think Arkham Horror is probably, but pretty much anything Richard Lanius, I feel, at least all the stuff that I've played of his, have a buttload of dice, and you're rolling dice. He really likes his dice. So
I just got Thunder Rolls from him, which has a ton of dice, but it is a like actions, like you roll your dice and then select actions with it. So it's not quite the same thing as what we're talking about, but still, a ton of dice rolling.
He's going to pop up with another game on this list for dice selection or placement or whatever we're calling it, dice allocation. Because I have another one. That you roll a ton of dice, but you choose. Spoiler. So we'll revisit that in, I don't know, a few videos when we come back to dice as a mechanism.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Looking forward to that.
Just as a side note, we actually just played 3rd edition Arkham Horror just a few days ago for the first time. So we had a lot of fun with that. Comparing it to 2nd edition, there's still a lot of dice, but they kind of took a little bit out of that because they did the bag like they do in the card game. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So you pull out of the bag. So that kind of dropped it down a little bit, but you still, Babe will tell you, it's constant. Like you said, it's constant checks, rolling dice, combat, rolling dice. Everything's a check. You're rolling dice constantly. That's a good choice.
Yeah, he likes his checks.
Yes. All right. For my final pick, I wanted to go with a game that saw you rolling dice a lot because you were pressing your luck. And so what I ultimately decided to choose was, and the best thing about this game probably is that it's free. It is a Dr. Reiner Knizia print and play called Decathlon. So in Decathlon, there's 10 different events, and those events have you rolling up to 8 dice and re-rolling and rolling and deciding when to lock them in or whatever. You know, in a given event, you could just keep rolling as long as you want, but if, you know, the wrong condition hits, you're going to fault. And so essentially you get 0 score. But, you know, just like every way that you can think of, like, oh, I'm going to roll dice and I have to be able to lock an odd number. And if I can't lock an odd number, I faulted. But if I can lock an odd number, I get to keep rolling, right? And so ultimately you want to lock 8 5s and the maximum score is 40. And then there's, you know, another version of that where it's just even numbers. So you can lock 8 6s and get, you know, 48. And then, you know, so you, and there's other ones where you like want to roll low numbers to lock in the low number dice. And then because those dice that you locked in with the low numbers, you get to roll those to like, that's like the run up to a jump, right? And then you roll those for your jump to see how far you got. And so, and in some of those things you get like 3 attempts, right? So it's okay if you fault once or whatever. And so that first attempt, you're like, well, maybe I should just play it safe and lock in a score. So, you know, in case I fault the other 2 times, or maybe you're just like, no, I'm going to go for it. I've got such an awesome score. I can set the world record if I keep rolling, because we keep records. There's on the box that I have for this, just a little photo box. There's a card in there, and I have the world records for, you know, we've played the game with. And on Board Game Geek, there's a world record because people play this in the forums with the dice roller on Board Game Geek. They have world records there, right? And so it's just That's much dice rolling.
Not real
so
dice.
Much.
I'm sorry. If a computer's rolling the dice, it's not the same.
Well, my copy, I have 8 D6s in there. Actually, I have more than that because it's easier if more than one person can be simultaneously rolling. The game goes faster, you know, but, you know, at least you have to have at least 8 D6s and, I don't know, a printer. And then you can play this game, right? So go get it. Go to Dr. Knizia's website and just download this. It's free and play it. It's fun.
Free is good.
Free is good. So yeah, Dr. Reiner Knizia's Decathlon. That is my pick. And so, Tiffany, did you have a third pick?
So, okay, help me out here, babe. It
Sure.
is a game that you traded to me super early on. It's a space.
Oh,
theme.
Alien Frontiers.
Alien Frontiers. There you go.
Oh, that is
That's
definitely dice placement.
is it? Okay, then I won't bring that one up. But I love in that game, like you get to, if you get all of the dice, you have such a massive handful of dice that you get to roll. And it just makes me feel really happy on the inside. But I won't talk about it because it doesn't count.
Spoiler.
It is a good game. So. All right. So are you ready for the People's Choice?
Yes. What do the people have to say?
So, you know, as always, I've got 2 games from the People's Choice. One was the far clear runaway one that everybody thought of when they thought of dice chucking. And that is King of Tokyo.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
I mean,
so
you may as well say Yahtzee, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, King of Tokyo is more gamery than Yahtzee.
Yeah. I'm not
All right,
trying to minimize it. I'm just saying, yeah, you're right.
Who wants to tell us about King of Tokyo? Come on.
Lloyd loves King of Tokyo.
All right, Lloyd, tell us
King
about
of Tokyo. Okay.
Tell us about it.
So I think I've described this on a previous list as Yahtzee with punching each other in the face, because you are giant kaiju and you're trying to take over, be the king of Tokyo by basically there's a little board. It's got a space on it. If you're playing with enough players, it's got 2 spaces on it. You roll some dice. If you get if you're outside of Tokyo and you get the little claw symbols, those are hits. And if you keep those, you will end up going into the, assuming there's no one in Tokyo already, you will go into Tokyo, and those dice will then be used to hit everyone around you. However, if you're in Tokyo and everyone else around the table starts rolling hits, they're all attacking you. And there's some other stuff in the game, like you can get points, just roll for points. There's like a 1, a 2, and a 3. So you got to get 3 of a kind to get for the points to count. If you get, there's some power cards that award you for getting a certain combination of dice. There's energy on there. So little lightning bolts get you little energy cubes, and those you use to buy the upgrade cards, which give you special powers and stuff. And then there is life. So you do have a hit total. So there's 2 ways to win the game. I guess there's technically there's player elimination, so you can lose by getting knocked out, but you can win by knocking everyone else out or hitting 20 points. So if everyone's playing correctly, no one's playing for points, and everyone's trying to knock each other out.
Yes, sir.
So that is King of Tokyo in a nutshell. You get 3 rolls, so it's like Yahtzee, but unlike Yahtzee, which has the same mechanism, but then it tacks on, I guess it's the same. I don't know. I guess Yahtzee, you kind of have dice placement, but I guess you really don't. Like
right.
you're choosing to take.
You like record them instead of placing them.
So
well, you do have to make a decision sometimes about where you're going to score those dice. So technically, there's
King of Tokyo. You're basically stuck with whatever you got after your 3 rolls. Whatever you got, you either use it or you lose it. And so that is King of Tokyo.
And I didn't mean to sound disparaging when I was talking earlier. I just simply meant that everybody knows Yahtzee. Like we've talked about this once or twice in things before. You could make any game and then just explain it to people like that. It's growing trees like Yahtzee style. And people are like, oh yeah, I get that. And it's just really easy to translate that into regular people.
Yeah.
Well, that's how I got my mom to play King of Tokyo. As I said, it's basically Yahtzee. It's Yahtzee, but we have she didn't buy any cards. She just rolled for points and hitting people. She didn't understand the cards, but whatever. She played it.
If
Right?
I was at somebody's house and they were like, do you want to play Yahtzee? I'd be like, sure. If we were at my house and somebody was like, hey, do you have Yahtzee? I'd be like, let me show you King of Tokyo.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
But all right. Far and away, the largest vote getter in the poll, King of Tokyo. There were other games that were pretty close for second, but the one that ended up being the second People's Choice game, and I'll talk about this because it's dice rolling and push your luck. It's very similar to what I picked, but this is Can't Stop.
Yeah. Good job, people. Great choice.
Yeah. In Can't Stop, though, you only have 4. You have 4 D6s, and you roll those, and you have to decide what you're going to do with those dice. So you have to put them in pairs. And there's a board, and on the board, it goes from 2 to 12. And you're basically trying to move usually cones up this board. And the 2s, you don't have to move it very far to get to the end of the column, to lock the column, to score the column. The 7s, you've got to move the farthest because it's, probability, the most common thing. So you can only be working on your turn, you can only be working on advancing cones in 2 columns or 3 columns. 3, right? Yeah. And so
3.
When you roll the dice, you pair them up so that you can move some cones. And at any point, you could decide, I'm going to stop and my turn is over. And you lock in all the progress that you made that turn. But if you don't lock in the progress and you keep rolling, if you roll and you roll such that you can't make a pair that is one of the three that you're working on, then you busted and you lose all the progress that you had that turn. So, you're tempted to just keep rolling and rolling and rolling and make more and more and more progress. But every time you roll those dice, you're running the risk of losing it all. So it is just really distilled, pure, press your luck. Fantastic game. You could really just make, based on the rules that I told you in 4d6s, you could just draw a board and, you could copy this yourself and play it at home as well. Just to try it out. If you like it, you should just buy one of the sets, because, it's handy to have like the cones that you stack that are marking where you were and where you currently are in progress and stuff like that. But it is fantastic. Press your luck game.
Another good way to give it a try is through Board Game Arena. So it's on there. And in fact, two friends of ours, they're a couple, they sent us a screenshot recently. They were playing that game and the one half of the couple just kept pressing her luck. And I joked that she was playing the solo player game because it was just a whole, like the screen cap was just the whole screen of her taking turn after turn after turn. And she kept pressing her luck, but it worked out for her. She was able to lock in and get all those points. So,
I have seen people attempt. So I mentioned that if you finish a column, you lock it. Nobody else can score that column, and you have to lock 3 columns to win the game. And I've seen people try to win the game on their first turn. It's theoretically seen it possible. Happen? I have never seen somebody actually do it. I've seen people get close. I actually would like to, and it shouldn't be that hard. I should just calculate the odds, or I could just do a Monte Carlo simulation or use that Any Dice website to tell me the result from simulation. But I'm curious how often that happens. It's probably like 1 in a million. It's probably some ridiculous odds against it actually happening, especially because I've heard other people talk about people who always try to do that. And I have yet to hear somebody actually succeeding. So, yeah, good times.
Good games all around.
Yeah. All right. Well, there are a lot of dice chucking games out there, but these are our favorites and the people's choice. So if you're interested in voting in our people's choice in the future, I always put that. I've been lately putting that poll on Facebook because they make it easy to do polls there. But I also mention it in our Discord channel. So you can sign up, come join our Discord server. The link is in the description down below. You can come talk to us, and then I'll let you know when we have another one of these polls up. In fact, we have another one up right now that hasn't closed. You can come vote on that one. There's links to our other social media stuff down there. So, and if you like this video, give us a thumb, subscribe, do all that YouTuber-y stuff. But in the comments below, why don't you tell us what's your favorite dice chucking game? And we'll tell you if you're right or you're wrong about it being a dice chucker, versus dice placement. Invalidated. No.
Invalidated.
Yeah. All right. Well, until next time, I'm Steven. That's Tiffany. That's Erock. That's Lloyd. We're Just Got Played. And thanks for joining us for Gaming Through Mechanisms.
Thanks, y'all. See you next time.